I'm Fred Hammond, and welcome to another edition of Reflections, sponsored by the Beverly Historical Society. Our guest again today is Charles Bucci, Jr. This is part 2 of the interview, and the focus will be on Charlie Bucci's family. Just as introduction, some of the things we didn't quite get to in the first program we'll use as a way of starting this program. This picture here, Charlie, is one of many pictures that you have of your father in various organizations, some of which he started, but he always played a sort of a central role. You mentioned B'nai B'rith. You mentioned the ICC.
Eagles, Elks. He was past president of the Eagles, Elks, Booth, Knights of Columbus, and Fourth Degree Knight.
This picture here is of?
Beverly Knights of Columbus.
Okay.
Beverly Knights of Columbus annual outing at St. John's Prep in Danvers, the year 1935.
And this is the school that you attended?
That's right.
So this is one of the old buildings up there?
Graduate 1948.
Now, as we look at the picture, pick your father out so the camera can zoom in.
Father is right here.
Okay, move your finger right there.
His brother is over here, Bill Bucci.
Okay.
Pete Tossi.
Right.
Joe Minnesali.
Oh, wow.
Red Dalton. Jack Slavin. Flavio Tossi, Raymond Bucci, Bruno Tossi, Joe Guarini, Monsignor Deegan, and this is a brother from St. John's Prep.
Okay.
I can't think of his name, but I'd know it, but I can't.
So this was their annual outing?
Annual outing. Oh, this is Palazzi right here. That's a guy named Mex Palazzi, Charlie Ivana.
Okay.
Spot a few there.
Quite a few from the 13 Black Cats.
A few from the 13 Black Cats.
And tell us about the 13 Black Cats. 13
Black Cats was an organization my father started when he was babysitting one night for me. That was probably in the 40s, late 40s possibly, late 40s.
No, you were born in?
I was born in 1930.
30, so if they're babysitting for your children.
Well, no, babysitting, somebody had to watch me.
Yeah, but you're 20 years old then.
No.
You got in trouble, huh, Charlie?
No, 44, 45, 14, 15 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother was 2 years younger than me, so he's 10 or 11.
He's babysitting your brother and sister.
He's not out on a date, that's for sure.
Okay. So what did they do, the 13 Black Cats?
Well, it was a social organization. It started out to be a social organization. They'd just meet and eat. They'd meet at a different guy's house every month. They had a monthly meeting, and whoever's house they had, of course, had to put on the feed. Italians love to eat, and that's what they did. But eventually they got into a little more social things. They donated some furniture to the Beverly Hospital, and they'd, at Christmas time, give baskets to the poor. Mm-hmm. They give about 50 food baskets that were worth probably, at that time, I used to deliver them, by the way.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Down at the store, they'd come in with that. They sold raffle tickets, and they'd have on the front of the ticket all the items that were going to be in the basket you won if you won the raffle. And an awful lot of those items, of course, went to the people, turkeys and things like that for Christmas.
Now I'm going to ask you to read a proclamation that your dad got, which we didn't have time to put on the other program. And who issued the proclamation, and what does it say?
Well, this was Oscar Olson, 1974.
Okay, so Charlie is up there in years. He died in 77.
Proclamation from the North Pole. Let it be known that on this day, Charles S. Bucci, it isn't S, by the way, but I guess the S might be for Santa, has attained the rank of first assistant to the chief, and in the event of my absence, he will perform my duties on that magic night in December. Whereas he regularly takes on the distinguished appearance of me each holiday season and on other occasions, whereas This gentleman succeeds in emulating the charm, character, and most of my habits, whereas this jolly, fat, hilarious, and likable fellow has generously contributed his time and talent to the Chamber of Commerce parades, to children's parents, grandparents, and has given many hours visiting hospitals and nursing homes, but he does lead a pretty lousy band. Whereas he has had direct communication with me at the North Pole, and his fame is known throughout the country and even to his homeland. Therefore, this proclamation is issued by me and the retail division of the Beverly Chamber of Commerce, and thousands of children who have sat on his chubby knee, held his gentle hand, and gazed into his twinkling eyes. With appreciation and love and respect, signed by my hand, Santa Claus, February 5th, 1974. Oscar Olson, Executive Director, and George Avantis, Chairman of the Retail Division.
Good. That's a nice summary of his life in many respects.
Pretty good.
And with a tongue-in-cheek and a few other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, he didn't mind being the subject of humor. He reveled in that. That's how he got a lot of laughs too. He could laugh at himself.
Good-natured fellow.
Good-natured.
You were going to tell a story about his brother,
Romy.
Romy, and the band. Yeah.
His brother Romy was one of the funniest guys I've ever known.
Really?
One of the funniest guys I've ever known. He was just a character. He died young, but he was a funny guy. That's all I can say. I can't give you instances, but one instance was that he played in Bucci's lousy band, and he played the bass drum. Now that bass drum would be a drum that you'd carry on your chest, you'd beat with a stick and hit it with a cymbal.
Cymbals, yeah.
Yeah. And when he played, although he was one of the funniest guys I've ever known, he would put on a different demeanor. He'd had the general's hat with 4 stars, and he'd look straight ahead and wouldn't crack a smile. My dad would say, "You people tonight are in for a treat. We're going to have a drum solo." And that immediately would set off everybody laughing, because the drum on stage was... And so he would lead my Uncle Romy in a drum solo that would last, I'm going to say, 3 minutes. That's a long time. That's a long time to hear somebody banging a drum. And what he'd do would be, my father would speed it up, would slow it down, and there'd be cymbals and my uncle had a lot of energy. He played and hit the thing pretty hard, and he hit it so hard it fell apart and rolled across the stage. Everybody thought it was part of the act. It wasn't. It wasn't an accident. But he was a funny guy. He was a great guy.
Well, it seems as though Bucci Jr. was also musical. This is you at what age?
That would be probably about 5 or 6 years old. I took lessons from a teacher in Salem called Alice Duffy. And I was, I don't know, maybe because of my father. My sister took lessons also, so she was a year older than me, and she was twirling a baton and that type of thing. She didn't act like that. I did tap. And eventually I did singing. I had Gene Godbout as a partner, and we sang A Concert in the Park. I don't know if you ever heard that song. Well, anyway, that's what we sang, and we tapped and sang together.
And that was like a recital?
Yeah. This is the same picture that appeared in the Salem Evening News, or the Beverly Times probably, and Alice Duffy announcing that she was holding a recital on Monday and Tuesday. I don't know what year that would be, but I'm looking for the price here. How much did she charge?
I think it's there.
$1? No, it wasn't $1, was it?
$1.10.
$1.10?
83 cents.
Unbelievable.
And 55 cents for seats. Children, Tickets at studio. Call Salem number.
Okay.
What about the big old truck on the top here?
I don't know. That's something that I was really surprised to find. That truck, I thought might be a Bucci's Market truck. But the picture, my brother in that picture is probably about 3 or 4 years old, so it's 1936. You can see a car in the background. This is taken on Dearborn Avenue, by the way.
Yep.
1937 that would be, because that's when we moved there. But that car looks like a 36 or 37. This car is much older than that. I don't understand that car, and I don't remember.
Now, this is the three of you.
Yeah, it's 5, 7, 8, I would say.
Let's have the sister and brother's names.
Right. Beatrice, Freddie, Manfredo, and Charles.
Manfredo.
Manfredo Mario was
That's
his real name. Yeah, Manfredo Mario, but Fred.
Did you have an Italian name too?
No. Can I give you a little story about that?
Yeah.
Well, I went to Italy. I spent a year in Italy. And my father, a lot of times when an Italian person would come into the store, they'd call my father Cesare.
Again?
Cesare. So I went to Italy and they said, "What's your name?" I said, because I was Charles Jr. I said, Cesare. They said, "Well, what's your American name?" I said, Charles. They said, "Your Italian name, if you were Charles, is Carlos."
Okay.
I said, "What's Cesare?" They said, "That's Caesar."
Oh, okay.
I came back and I
Dad.
said to my dad, "Do you know what your name is?" And we got the birth certificate out and everything else. Caesar.
Yeah, that's good.
I could have been a Caesar. I would love to have been a Caesar. This is a little older.
Yeah.
This is probably teens. I'm going to say 16, 15, St. John's Prep probably at that time, and 13. Maybe a little younger than that, huh?
Yeah.
10, 12,
Yep.
13, something like that. Yeah.
Nice pictures, Charlie.
Yeah. That's at Uncle Paul's wedding. Freddie and I were in it. I was best man, and Freddie was an usher at the wedding.
How old is Freddie in that picture?
I'm going to say 17, 15. 17,
Well,
15.
I think of it as a fairly heavy football player, and he looks pretty trim in that tux.
He wasn't that heavy. He was 220. At Columbia University, he was 220. 220 pounds.
I knew him as a kid now. I think him as,
at high school, he wasn't that. I don't think he was that.
I think him as more roly-poly, you know?
I was 155 at St. John's
Were
Prep.
you really?
Yeah, he was probably 185,
Oh,
100.
he was easily that.
Yeah, 185, 190.
Yeah.
But you know, despite the fact that he was as big as he was the first guy into the punt. He was a fast football player.
He was agile.
Yeah, he played with unbridled enthusiasm and reckless abandon. Now, I had a nephew, Mark LeClaire,
Yes.
quarterback for Beverly.
Yes.
He went to Westfield State. And I went up to him after about seeing 4 games. I went to Westfield all the time to see him play. I said, "Mark, you don't play with reckless abandon." And he says, "Uncle Charlie, I talked to the coach about that, and he said, 'Don't you dare play with reckless abandon. You're the only quarterback I have. If I lose you, I lose every game in the season.'"
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's true. Reckless abandon.
This is the 1948 football team.
No, that's not. Well, this is the 48
No,
football
it says
team.
1950, Charlie.
No. This isn't the 40. You have. This is the 1950 team.
Oh.
This is Columbia University. These
Okay.
are the people that went down to my brother's last game at Columbia University.
Now, you know what I love about the picture? The W.H. Cannon Son.
Right across the street from the grocery store.
General contractor. Can built the high school, the Briscoe today, you know, on Sawyer, on Colon Street.
Yeah. That was right across from the grocery store. This bus was parked directly
that's
across
fabulous.
from
Of
the
course,
market.
it's Michaud bus,
Yeah.
which many of us remember very well.
Michaud. Yeah.
And what does it say on the?
Best wishes, Captain Fred Bucci, Columbia football team of Beverly.
Wow.
Yeah. This is, right here is Bobby Hayes. Bobby Hayes is in this picture.
Yes.
Right here. Bobby Hayes, I think Billy Ransom. My wife, Claire Slavin. That's Don Slavin's wife. All the 13 black cats are over here. So they were very supportive. That's my Uncle Tony, and this is Ted Bucci. He lives in Hamilton right now. Yeah. But they went down to see, by the way, that day, the day of that trip, it snowed like blazes.
Wow.
It snowed like blazes. And they had all collected money to give to my brother as a gift on the bus. And what happened was that Lou Little, who was the coach at Columbia University, saw them all come in and everything else and said, "You're not going out to eat in New York City, you're eating with the team." So they all ate with the football team, my brother's last game.
Now this is his high school senior.
That's a high school.
Yeah, we looked at it. I said 48, and we agreed.
1950.
This is a very good team also. Maybe lost one game or so.
Yeah.
And it's autographed, which is very nice.
Everybody, best wishes and many thanks to a fine group of boys: Charlie Walsh, Joe Maglio, Joanne Brief, Jim Vitale,
Dick Cunningham, Ralph Paracella,
yeah,
Nick Maglio.
yeah. Who was the quarterback? We got him?
Should be Dick Carr.
It should be Dick Carr, right?
Yeah.
50. That's right.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, great teams. Those were great teams. I love going to the ball games.
Yeah, that was really a nice time.
That was a great time.
People were saying before television and a lot of the other distractions, right?
If you look at they have the Hall of Fame for Beverly High and all that. Awful lot of kids from that era are in the Hall of Fame. They had some great teams.
Yeah.
Great teams. Love to see Beverly football come back and be like that again. I hope they had a great year last year. I hope they have a good one this year.
Charlie Polonzi in that?
Charlie Polonzi is not in there. I don't know why.
Okay.
Should be. Yeah. Fred's over here, not in uniform, by the way.
Because?
I would say injured or something.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, not in uniform. That's unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fred played on the 48 team that was so outstanding. He was a sophomore.
He was a sophomore.
Yeah.
Started playing at Briscoe Junior High School. They had great teams at Briscoe High. The only games they lost at Briscoe was to the Beverly High sophomores when they were in the 8th and 9th grades at Briscoe. And then he started playing for the high school as a sophomore.
You want to go over how he died? It's so sad.
Well, he had just come back from the Marine Corps. He was in the Marine Corps. He played football for Quantico.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he played football for Quantico Marines. In fact, he was all Marine. He was all Marine. And in those days, what happened was everybody was in ROTC. And
ROTC.
So you're talking about ROTC. You're talking about guys from Notre Dame, guys from, and here they are now in the Marine Corps. So just continue on their football career. He played with some fantastic guys who went on to play pro ball. I always felt that had he lived, he would have played for the Patriots because he was playing for his peers and he was recognized by his peers as a leader. He was a captain of the football team at Quantico.
Oh, wow, I never knew this.
Yeah, he was captain of the football team at Beverly High. He was captain of the football team at Columbia.
Well, I knew him as a kid, and he was, like your father, he was a very genial,
yeah, he's very generous.
Well-liked young man.
Very generous. When I was going to college, I'd come home from college, and I didn't have a dime. And I'd say, I got a date tonight, Fred. You got any money? Whatever he had, I had. When my father would go down to visit him, by the way, my father never went to high school games except like Thanksgiving because he had to work in the store.
I was going to say that, yeah.
So he would say who could go, who was in the store. Like his brothers worked for him. So one week Romy would go, the next week Billy would go, but I always went. I always went. I worked in the store. But when Freddie went to Columbia, my dad went to every game. He had the trunk of the car packed with rain gear, snow gear, boots, galoshes, blankets, umbrellas. My dad and my mom went to Dartmouth, Penn,
great. That's
Pennsylvania,
great.
Princeton.
That's
They
great.
went to every game.
Now that's a story in and of itself.
Lou Little,
Yeah.
when they'd go up to meet the guys after the game, all the guys had to come out with sport coat, tie. And they had to go up to all the other parents before they saw their parents. Greet all the other parents, thank them for coming to the game, whatever it was. And then they could go to their parents and go off and have a good time. So he was teaching them more than football.
Was he in dental school when he died after this?
No. He had just gotten a job to be an assistant coach at Somerville High. He got back, he came from the Marine Corps, and I think he was home for probably 2 months, 3 months, got a job teaching and assistant coach at Somerville High. Went to a party up in Gloucester and came home probably, I don't know the time, but very late, early in the morning, and died on 128.
Did he fall asleep at the wheel?
Fell asleep at the wheel.
Was he coming off 128?
No, he's going around a curve
Okay.
somewhere around Magnolia, Manchester, somewhere in that area. I don't know the spot. I was in New York at the time.
Yeah.
When he died.
Very difficult time for your dad.
Oh, my dad couldn't talk to anybody for a year. The reason was that he was more like the Buccis than say I was. And my father played football from the time he was 16 to the time he was 23, 7 or 8 years, for a semi-professional team in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Latrobe, Pennsylvania was considered a site for Professional Football Hall of Fame.
I think it goes back to
But it went to Canton.
the Jim Thorpe era and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
And the thing that, I looked up the history of that, and Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the team in Latrobe was the first team to pay for somebody to play. They paid $10 for some player from Notre Dame to play, and that's why they call that the possible birthplace of pro football. But anyway, my uncle, my father's brother, coached football at Derry Borough High School, Derry, Pennsylvania High School for 25 years. All of my uncles played football. Everybody played football. They were into football. Football was macho. I played football for 4 years on the bench at St. John's Prep. And when we get together in the family, when we used to get together, everybody talk about Freddie's exploits. And I had an Uncle Bill who, because he lived in Danvers, came up to see a couple of games. Nobody in my family ever saw me play, except Uncle Bill. He saw me play. And I got a jersey or something like that from St. John's from my senior year, and it was a blue jersey with 2 white stripes. And my uncle used to say, those are the 2 minutes that I saw Charlie play.
This is a picture of your good sister that
Beatrice.
appeared in the Beverly Times
Beatrice.
on a major event, which some of the people out there in TV land will remember.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about it.
Well, I was in Italy, and I lived in Italy for a year. And Beatrice came over. I was in the service, and Beatrice came over to see me, and we took her all over Italy. We went in the. I had bought a Volkswagen. We went all over Italy and toured Italy. Had a great time, and then I was leaving to go to Greece, and my wife and I brought her down to the Andrea Doria, which she got on to come back to the United States. The thing about it was that because that was in August and I was coming back later that month, she had an empty trunk.
What year we talking?
1956.
Okay.
She had an empty trunk, said, do you want me to bring stuff back, help you out? I said, yeah. I gave her $100 to help pay for my insurance. And I gave her Hummels that we had bought in Germany.
Oh, I'm with you.
And lace and silks that we had bought in Italy and stuff like that. And she had purchased a lot of things too, so she'd throw them in the trunk. And she got on the Andrea Doria. I left Naples to go to Greece. And I was asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. The guy from the Radio Shack came down and said, Charlie, the Andrea Doria is sinking. I said, hey, that's a lousy joke. My sister's on the Andrea Doria. He says, I know. That's why I came down to wake you.
So what happened?
got hit by the Stockholm. Stockholm and the Andrew Doria had a collision, and
What, south of Connecticut,
just
on the way into New York Harbor?
I was going to say Nantucket, not really.
Okay, yeah.
Now there's Newfoundland or something, just off of Newfoundland.
Okay.
That's where it was.
Okay.
And my sister didn't know how to swim.
Mhm.
And what she did was, when everybody was starting to panic, and she is leader type. She doesn't panic. She panicked inside, but not outside. Everybody follow me, and she took everybody to a room and said, "We'll wait here for instructions." I'm pretty sure they had lifeboat drills, and she took everybody to where they were supposed to go from the lifeboat drills. And some woman was wailing and crying and wailing, and my sister says, "Here, take my life jacket," which was crazy because she can't swim. She gave up her life jacket. And they waited for a while. Nobody came. The crew, I guess, there was a lot of talk about the crew not being disciplined and not doing their duties, if you will. But anyway, nobody showed. So they decided to go for the lifeboats, if you will. And so they went, and she helped people. What she did, too, was they held blankets in the lifeboat, people in the lifeboats, and they dropped babies into the blankets, into the lifeboat. And Beatrice recalls throwing some babies over the side. It sounds crazy, but it was the smart thing to do. And the ship was listing, and they said, "You got to get off. The ship's going to sink."
Yeah.
And they had ropes over the side. She had to shimmy down a rope. She was a pretty good-sized girl. And she said, "No way." They said, "You got to go because the ship's sinking."
And she can't swim.
And she can't swim. She went down the rope. She doesn't know how she did that. She was praying a lot while all of that was going on. And she said in her prayers, "My life isn't ready to be over because I haven't met my man yet, and I have children that I have to take care of and everything else." She was saved. It was the story about my mother and father going down to New York to pick her up and not knowing that the Andrew Doria had sunk, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they asked a cop where they should park and everything else. He said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "We're here to meet the Andrew Doria." So that ship sank. And they had no radio. They didn't know it. They had no radio in the car. Well, anyway, they drove around for 2 days. They finally hooked up. She met a widower, Bob LeClaire.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
She met a widower, Bob LeClaire. He had 8.
I know we had a big family.
And she married him and had twins 1 year later, and then a son a couple of years later. And she used to wear a T-shirt on all our family occasions. And on the front of it said, "I was saved from the Andrew Doria," and on the back, "For my 10 children." And she was so proud because God answered her prayer. She met the guy, and she had all the kids.
Where'd she meet Bob?
How'd she meet Bob?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can't give you that one.
Yeah.
But my father and mother really didn't know whether that was the right thing for her to do. And of course it was the right thing for her to do. She was a great mother, great. All the parties were at her house, by the way.
And she lived on?
She lived on, you had to ask me that. You shouldn't do that. You know the cleaners, the flare cleaners?
Yeah, down back there.
Long terrace.
Okay. Longview Terrace.
Longview Terrace.
Okay.
But all the parties had to be at her house because she had 11 kids. How the hell could she, how could she get everybody in the car and come to my house? So when we say we're going to have a party for my dad and mom, or we're going to have a party for somebody, people are coming from Pennsylvania. Where's the party going to be? At her house, always.
Now, you mentioned you lived in 5 different places in Beverly growing up?
Yeah, well, I was born on Front Street.
Right.
And that I was born in Simone and Archivati's house because that's where my mother and father lived when they came on their honeymoon. I was born 1 year later after they were married. My sister was born in Pennsylvania. Then they moved to another house that he owned on 46 Cabot Street, and my brother was born 2 years after me, 46 Cabot Street, which is the gas station right by the Edward School there, the street. There's a house, the house right there.
House still there?
2-story house,
Yeah.
2-story house. And then we moved, my mother and father moved from there to the back of the grocery store where my uncles came. And then we moved to a little house right next to Sunray Bakery. Sunray Bakery, on the left-hand side of Sunray Bakery, there's a very little, it was a storefront. And I remember playing in the front, I had my tricycles and stuff like that in the front of that store. But it was really a very poor neighborhood. And then we made some money, and in 1937 we moved to Dearborn Avenue. Yeah, 16 Dearborn Avenue.
Hey, you know, we moved up on the Waspa. We talked about this, you know?
I'll tell you.
We're out of the Italian area of Beverly.
I went to Prospect School.
I did too.
Did you go to Prospect
of course.
School?
I'm
Really?
Montserrat, yeah.
You're kidding. Larry, I had Sam Appleton in my class, Joyce Klink, Janet Rankin.
They're neighbors.
You're kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's who I had in my class.
That's great. That's
Sam Garabedian, I don't know if you know that name.
No,
Peter
okay.
Price.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Price.
Yeah. Peter and Dick.
Yeah, his brother Dick, right. And those were Prospect School for, I had gone to Edward School, by the way, kindergarten. Beatrice Renzi
What was the
my teacher.
difference between Edwards and Prospect?
I was too young to see a difference. Yeah, too young. But you know, the funny thing was, I had Beatrice Renzi as a kindergarten teacher. When I went to Prospect, she was the 4th grade teacher. She was the 4th grade teacher. Then I went to Briscoe, 8th grade.
As we all did.
8th grade. And that was a real opening because I knew the kids at Prospect, but I didn't know the other kids in Beverly. Now you're exposed to all the kids in Beverly. That was wow. Wow.
You liked working at your dad's store, which was where the wine cellar is now?
Yeah, I did like.
I understand your mother would sit there and do the figuring.
What
on a
we
piece of
used to
paper?
have contests. We used to have contests. We'd take the orders,